What's the reasoning on why she's not allowed to speak?
Please sit down.
Do we have an explanation?
I have to read it.
Please sit down.
Please sit down. I have to read it.
I'll ask
I can't
the
hear
assembly to come into order, or we'll have to recess the meeting.
Well, we
Please
were.
sit down.
This is horrible.
I explained the grand jury proceedings. My understanding is that they're in secret. Whatever Ms. Majeroni was trying to explain to you should have been done in the grand jury. And the grand jury found nothing against the Board of Elections.
She asked for
So
paperwork.
she's trying to tell y'all something different, and it's impermissible. Whatever she said was in before the grand jury.
She was
not in
asking
this
for paperwork that she never
room. That's
received.
why we're not moving forward with the testing.
The clip, that's not exactly the clip I want. Let me bring in Beth Majeroni. Beth, you were carried out. So explain this. This was after, as they're trying to make an excuse, but Beth joins us now. It was in Chatham, which is near Savannah last night. You were manhandled. If we can find that, I'd like to play it. You were manhandled last night. By authorities. And this was the excuse they were giving the audience afterwards. But I want to go to the event itself. You stood up and you wanted to address this, I guess, the board of directors of the commission. And all of a sudden, they cut you off, and they had authorities come out and actually dragged you out of the space.
Yes, that is correct. I and several of us had gone, actually about 60 of us had gone to the Board of Elections monthly meeting to talk about the fact that the Dominion voting machines that we have here in Georgia were fraught with opportunities for election integrity issues. And so a lot of people had spoken on that topic before I got up there. And my point when I got up there was, yes, these machines need to go. We need paper ballots. We need to get rid of the Dominion machines. But we even have a bigger issue here in Chatham County that many of you may not be aware of. And I proceeded to say that I had taken the supervisor of elections before a grand jury in February. I was actually told I was the first citizen to ever go in front of a grand jury. It's usually the prosecuting attorneys. But anyway, I was the first citizen to go in front of the grand jury, I think, in Chatham County ever. And I brought the supervisor of elections in front of the grand jury for violation of his oath of office, I'll include that, alleged violation of his oath of office, and for voting irregularities and falsifying documents that I had received during the open records process related to the primary of 2022, May 24.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. I want to go back, and as soon as Memphis, if we get the clip, I want to show, because I think what's so shocking. And, of course, Ms. Taylor, who ran for governor, has been adamant about this, and you're backed up by, I guess it's the Haldeman report has come out, and now is part of the documentation about this is not Beth Majeroni being some screaming wild woman. This is actually backed up in documents that are coming forward, reports that are coming forward that talk about the vulnerability of the machine. And people know I'm not a machine guy. I'm still, hey, they stole it by the mail-in ballots, but I do know, and I know talking to sophisticated hedge fund people and former colleagues of mine in investment banking that finance technology who are Democrats, who are not Trump people at all. When they look at the machines, they go, these machines are way too complicated. These should be like, if you're going to use machines at all, it should be as simple as money counters are in Vegas. These things are way too programmable. They're way too sophisticated. They're too complicated for the task at hand. I have Democrats saying that. You've got these reports out. A citizen should be able to do it. So you took this guy to the grand jury. Now, that's a whole process of a citizen actually going to a grand jury and bringing somebody before it. And this occurred earlier in the year. And he used that as an excuse why you couldn't address the commission last night.
That was what I heard afterwards. And actually, after the grand jury test, or after I testified for 2.5 hours with all my evidence, like a ream of evidence and taped calls and everything in front of the grand jury subcommittee in February, the Board of Elections supervisor who was there last night and some of his staff, who I had suggested needed to be subpoenaed, did go in front of the grand jury, and they were deposed. And as a result of their depositions, the grand jury did decide that perhaps it was a misunderstanding on Miss Majeroni's point about the falsified document, but I actually have more evidence on that, but that's another story for another day. And then they did say that I should be entitled to two things. One of the things that Mr. Wooten was supposed to get me, that he should have given with my earlier open records request, was the ballot custody documents. He said it during the grand jury deposition that he did not give me all of that. So I was supposed to get that immediately after March 1st. And then I was also supposed to get QR code information on what's contained in the QR code, because Georgia has the scanners that read the QR code, which is why we're really upset. I mean, Dominion machine, but it's illegal in Georgia to have anything on our ballots that the voter can't read. And so we have everything supposedly that we voted for that's printed out before we go to the scanner, but then there's a QR code, and nobody knows what that QR code really says, and that's what gets recorded as our ballot. So there you go.
Okay, hang on. I want to play. By the way, let me play this. I think Memphis has a clip now. Let's go ahead and play the clip of her trying to address, I guess, the Board of Elections last night. Let's go ahead and play it.
Allow her to speak. Get your hands off of her.
Okay.
I just want to help.
Get your hands off of her.
Get it.
Lots of time. These are the people that are not following the law.
Wrong. So wrong. This is so wrong.
Excuse me.
She had the right to speak.
Excuse me. I'd like to hear what he has to say. Let's hear what he has to say as to why.
On film because I'm
Allow her to speak.
Back up right now. I just want to help. Like, I don't want
oh my God. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
What's so shocking, you had to protect your own modesty there. I mean, you were manhandled. That is what happens in fascist society. No, but it's, if you hadn't done, I mean,
it was awful.
This is so it's so incomprehensible that in a public forum, and the audience was with you to let you speak, that you were manhandled by authorities. This is what happens, and this is the road to fascism right there. When those supervisors can have strong-arm police come in and basically sweep away a citizen just trying to get to the microphone and address it. Walk us through it, Beth.
It was when I started talking about, when I mentioned grand jury, they got very uncomfortable with my bringing up that topic. And what I've found is that so many people don't understand the grand jury process that I've had to learn over the past year with the help of some friends. And the fact that the only part of grand jury that is secret is the deliberations. If you look at the oath of office for the jurors, it's their deliberations, which are secret, even from the DA or the judge attending. And so I could speak to anything as long as it's related to process or a recommendation from the grand jury or their conclusions. And that's all I was doing, was taking the presentment that was given by the foreman of that grand jury to the judge at the end of their term. I took that presentment that was provided to me by our Soros DA in Chatham, and actually just used language out of there so that I was sure it was factual. And then the ultimate thing at the end of my speech was, which I never got to say, is It's been over 4 months, and my question is, do I need to take you back to the grand jury to get what I'm supposed to legally have from you?
History is made by unreasonable women, right? Fighters who are not going to back down. I take it you're not going to back down for this, no matter what they try to do to you?
I am not backing down. I have spoken at the school boards as well here in Chatham County. I've probably made 18 school board speeches on everything from getting rid of masks to CRT to SEL to I'm a regular speaker, but I pride myself on always being respectful, having my facts. And that's the way I was yesterday. My usual calm demeanor, just the facts, ma'am. And I was totally caught off guard. I was pushed down to the floor. I'm sore today from the whole experience. It was tough and very demeaning.
Did you ever?
I didn't deserve that.
No. They wanted it to be demeaning. That's what I'm saying. If you hadn't protected yourself with your modesty, they wanted it to be demeaning. They wanted that meme to go everywhere. They want to show the citizens that are at the homes and that understand things are wrong, that if you stand up and question this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to be humiliated in front of the world, and we're going to make sure the video goes everywhere. You're actually a hero and a patriot, and you're inspiring people, so it backfired on them. Where do you go from here on this in this topic, man? Because Spalding County is going to vote tonight on the machines, and you're seeing a firestorm across this country coming. People are fed up with it. They got to have it. They have to have election integrity. We have to understand that these elections are about certifiable chain of custody, verifiable legal ballots from American citizens. That's what it is, and that's why you've seen this big movement for paper ballots and game day voting. Where do you go from here on this, Beth?
We have a very large contingency in the state, and of course, Candace is helping us there, Candace Taylor. And then locally, we were able to get totally new leadership, grassroots leadership in our Republican Party here, and so we're working on election integrity through our new leadership in the Republican Party in Chatham County. So we are not going to back down, and I'm going to continue to pursue to get what I'm legally able to have from the Board of Elections, and I won't be silenced.
Beth, how do people get to you on social media? Or website? Where do people go to find out more about you and your fight?
At Liz Majeroni is my Twitter handle.
Okay, fine. Let's get her on Twitter. Liz, it's inspirational. This is like a shot heard around the world. This is like Concord and Lexington. So if you don't, please don't quit fighting and come back and update us on the War Room.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Honor. We're bringing another unreasonable woman. Do I have Naomi up yet? No Naomi? Okay, I'm going to get Naomi. Is she? Let me bring Naomi, who's also totally unreasonable. But you haven't been dragged off. You haven't been dragged off from a podium yet, but that day's coming, I'm sure. Talk to me. Another blockbuster report. I'm so proud of the War Room Posse and what they're doing with the Daily Clout. Amy Kelly, your entire team over there. Another blockbuster report. Give me what you've recently found out.
Well, it's really extraordinary, and it's more of a blockbuster politically even than scientifically. You remember that in Report 74, the War Room Daily Clout team of volunteers concluded that Pfizer had basically made up its safe and effective data by dropping 200 injected people who had COVID from their final tally. And now a report by Gianti Kunadasan, who's an anesthesiologist in Australia, actually a very brave member of our team because she was targeted by the licensing board for the crime of introducing Amy Kelly, our COO, and me to a group of concerned doctors in Australia who wanted to know more about the injections. And Ed Clark, MSc, they're from Team 3. So what they did is they went into Pfizer's internal documentation for how Pfizer reached that safe and effective number. And what they found in terms of a timeline is pretty stunning, that basically Pfizer could have announced their admittedly fake, safe and effective conclusion at the end of October 2020. In other words, before the presidential election. You remember that President Trump was overseeing Operation Warp Speed. He was eager to have a vaccine that worked. He was eager to solve the problem as far as he understood the solution to the problem would be, meaning a safe and effective vaccine. And so what this Team 3 have found is that that Pfizer had that information as of October 2020, the information that they later rolled out. Granted, it was jerry-rigged to start with, but they had it and they rolled it out, but they held it for 3 weeks till after the 2020 presidential election. So do you want me to pause there? Or do you want me to, if you'll give me a minute or two?
Yeah, no. I want to go back. I just want to reiterate to get the audience up to speed. You guys proved that the mantra "safe and effective," which was a bludgeon, and it's a mantra. You go back to MSNBC and CNN; they always are safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. It became their mantra, and this is what Biden and these guys did to push this thing out, and basically to put in mandates and to throw people out of the military. All the fiasco came after. It was safe and effective. You guys have proven that the way that they got to safe and effective is they screwed with the denominator, right? They took out 200. They kind of got the number, these 200, let's take these out. Oh, it's safe and effective once we take out the 200 that got COVID. So it was gun decked from the beginning. But then politically, you just found out as you guys went back and let's do another drill down that the bogus safe and effective was at least there by the end of October. So the president who kind of bet everything, look, President Trump is the head of the MAGA movement. It's not a secret that 2/3 of the MAGA movement are not vaxxed and not pro-vax in this regard, right? But he understands what he was trying to do is trying to, at that time in his mind, save the nation. But the Pfizer guys, not only did they gun deck it, but they gun decked it and then they held it back so they could release it 3 weeks later. For after the election, is there anything in that 3 weeks that they'd be able to come back and blow back on you and say no, we need to make sure the 200 weren't in there. We needed another set of calculations to make sure that this was accurate, Naomi?
Well, no, and especially because I want to just read a couple of bullet points, because not only did they hold back what could have been an already jerry-rigged announcement of safe and effective until after Biden had ostensibly won the election, thus literally, as you recall, handing that victory to Biden. I mean, I remember, Biden got elected, at least as far as the headlines were concerned, and like a week later, it was, oh, look, we've got the vaccine that's going to solve everything, and it's going to end the lockdowns, and it's safe and effective. And this literally read as a gigantic blessing of the Biden administration. All you had to do was get rid of President Trump, and the country would be saved through pharmaceuticals. So that was engineered. And not only was it engineered, it was engineered via, and this goes to our lawsuit, because as you recall, our team in LA, Scott Street and John Howard, have written a letter to DOJ claiming that Pfizer committed fraud against the U.S. Treasury in contracting. And this report shows that Pfizer was supposed to have amended their contract by October 31st, 2020, if they needed any additional time, or else they were supposed to give a report of the status of the vaccine to the Department of Defense. And they didn't do that. There's no sign that they did that. So they violated the terms of their SOW with DOD in order to hold back this incredibly politically impactful announcement that they had produced a quote unquote safe and effective vaccine. So on July 21st, 2020, the U.S. government, Pfizer and BioNTech, signed an SOW for rapid development and obtaining licensure for COVID-19 vaccine. Listen to this, by October 31st, 2020, a few days prior to the November 3rd, 2020 U.S. presidential election. The SOW states that if authorization was not granted by October 31st, then they have to have a contract modification. They didn't have any kind of contract modification as far as our team has found. On the date of Pfizer Protocol Amendment 9, October 29th, 2020, Pfizer already had more than 62 evaluable efficacy cases diagnosed as required in that exact amendment. So they had created an amendment to say, okay, all you need is 62 cases, and then you can say it's safe and effective. Right? So by October 29th, 2020, when President Trump was campaigning hard, for his reelection, they were required by their SOW to disclose that they had 62 evaluable efficacy cases, on which basis they could and later would claim that the vaccine was safe and effective. However, they didn't. They waited for the election. They didn't say anything crickets through the election. On November 9th, 2020, after the election, Pfizer announced that its BNT162b2 vaccine, the one everyone received, candidate was more than 90% effective based on the November 8th, 2020 interim analysis of partial data. Despite Pfizer not making its vaccine efficacy announcement till November 9th, 2020, more than 1 week after the SOW commitment date, there is no evidence that Pfizer notified the government as required of a greater than 1 week change in schedule, as I mentioned. On November 18th, this is now 3 weeks after they had the 62 people showing safe and effective efficacy. On November 18th, right, this is like 2.5 weeks after Election Day, Pfizer reported 95% effectiveness based on analysis of a larger data set that they cherry-picked that included 170 patients, 162 in the placebo group and 8 in the vaccinated. And you remember that debacle from an earlier report. So they held the gamed report until November 18th, 2020, at which point they announced it's not just over 90% effective, it's 95% effective. And by this time, they were in violation of their contract with the Department of Defense, which had required them to alert DOD for a modification by the end of October if they weren't able to show that the vaccine was safe and effective. So they just violated their contract, kept silent about the 62 safe and effective number that they had in October.
By the way, SOW means statement of work. The buried lead, though, is they knew mathematically they had to gun deck it. Let's see that tonight. Let's dump these 200 and we can get there, right? I mean, they completely gamed the system to the statement of work, right? Am I wrong? I mean, that's obvious with the fact pattern you guys have laid out, right?
You're absolutely right about that. And, we reported that in the infamous report 73, I believe, that they got to safe and effective on November 18th by just dropping 200 vaccinated COVID-infected people from their math. And I think most people who took this injection would not have taken it if they knew it was based on 172 unvaccinated people and 8 vaccinated people.
No, if they'd known what the details of the report were, nobody would have ever taken this thing. That's obvious. We got a couple of minutes. Get us up to speed on where we stand with everything else, because people got to understand Naomi is fighting on this every day on every front. So walk us through where we stand.
I will, but I really want the audience to understand that they had enough people, according to their own amendment, to declare in October that it was safe and effective based on their faulty analysis. But they didn't do that until after the election. And that was a huge factor in people being frustrated with President Trump. They accused him of not fighting the lockdowns, not fighting COVID, not doing enough to save people from this disease. So that was completely, I think that's a huge piece of evidence in our lawsuit against the United States government and Pfizer for fraud, because they clearly defrauded the Department of Defense and didn't even live up to the terms of their own contract. And they defrauded the American people. And they defrauded the American people of a fair election, because who knows, 10 points, 15 points, it could, if the announcement had come during President Trump's administration, it could have swung voters enough in his direction so that whatever shenanigans were at the ballot box would not have affected the outcome. So the bottom line, it's huge. So we basically have this as our bombshell for the week. And we also have the ongoing fight on two fronts to have the Department of Justice respond to our claims of reckless endangerment via Ohio and fraud via our LA-based team. And apart from what I mentioned last time we spoke, which is DOD has responded to George Smith, and they are in discussion. I think that's really exciting. They have not managed to blow us off. They've not managed to make us go away. And in terms of the response to our 40-page letter, which you can read on dailyclout.io from Scott Street and John Howard, accusing Pfizer of committing fraud against the United States government and compelling disclosure of early contracting emails, we don't have any new news to report except that DOD has it. And I think that we're putting pressure on them on two fronts.
How do people join the fight here? Where do they go? How do they support you? How do they find out more?
Really need your help in terms of donations, everyone. Need your help in terms of memberships. This is so expensive. It's tens and tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. So please go to dailyclout.io and contribute, sign up, become members. And you can also help by ordering the Pfizer book. That helps us, and sharing it with your loved ones, your doctors, sending it to hospitals. Very soon we're going to have an offer where for a donation you can get a Pfizer book inscribed for you or sent to a hospital of your choice. So I'll announce that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Naomi Wolf fighting the good fight over at Daily Clout. Blockbuster. Pfizer knew at the end of October by contract, and guess what? Held it for a couple of weeks. Blockbuster Report. Thank you very much, Naomi Wolf. Short break. We're going to Armenia with Michael Yan, to Rome with Ben Harnwell, and we're going to talk about Ukraine.
Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
And I co-sponsored a resolution with Representative Jacobs and Representative Gates to actually prevent these cluster bombs from going to Ukraine. Not only are they highly dangerous for civilians and children, but exactly as mentioned, even on this mainstream media network that you were just played the clip of, I mean, there is a potential that these will be unexploded ordinance and that there will have to be a massive demining effort afterwards. So not only is it crazy, but let me just tell you about a conversation that I had with the Speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament when I was in Poland on a CODEL, okay? They want to not only demand that Americans pay $200 every single day, every American in the country, because it is our quote unquote obligation, according to Ukraine, so that they can defend the Western world from Russia. But they're also saying that they want F-35s. And if that isn't crazy enough, they're saying that after Russia leaves Crimea, which is where their head is at, they're going to potentially privatize and create a mercenary army similar to the Wagner group. So that is the mindset of Ukraine. Why are we giving them more munitions? Meanwhile, we have the Hunter Biden investigation that was tied to, remember, Burisma and a Ukrainian oligarch. Are we supposed to be there? Absolutely not. Do we need to continue to fund this war? Absolutely not. And that's exactly why I'm sponsoring this resolution.
Okay, a firestorm over in the House now about this supplement for Ukraine, the NDAA, all of it. A lot of it gets back to Ukraine. Ben Harnwell in Rome. Ben, the NATO meeting's going on. As we called it, Zelensky's not happy. He's throwing his toys out of the pram. And you've just heard breaking news we had this morning on the show. Anna Polina, who's one of the leaders of the Not One More Dollar for Ukraine movement, which is going to win, it said how the head of the parliament sitting there going, you have an obligation, America, to continue to fund this. Ben Harnwell.
Yeah, Ukraine's really going all in right now. It's very possible, I think, to look between the lines at this and realize that they evaluate that time is running out. Let's start in reverse order, I think, with the day's developments and go back, because it does all tie together. The first I would like to mention here is a statement that one of President Zelensky's advisors, Mikhailo Polodyak, said that there's a 100% probability of NATO formally joining the alliance by this time next year, even if there isn't a formal invitation extended in Vilnius today. And he went on to say why. because I believe that by that time, Russia will have completely lost its subjectivity and will cease to exist as a country capable of waging any wars. That is an astonishing thing, I think, for Ukraine to say, because it makes it absolutely explicit. If there were any doubt, obviously the Western mainstream media don't highlight this fact, but this war is increasingly for Russia a war, an existential war for their own survival. And here the Ukrainians have said quite explicitly that if the United States and the Western NATO allies continue to support Ukraine's war, that is where we will be this time next year. That is like the maximum level of escalation. Also today, then, Bloomberg.
But hold it, before you go off that point though, that's the selling point. The territorial dispute, the spring offensive is non-existent. This is why they got to go to the cluster bombs. Biden said they're out of ammo. The cluster bombs, they got to go to the cluster bombs. They're not going to take Crimea back. They're not going to take the eastern provinces back. But this is a territorial dispute. They're trying to sell the bigger picture to the powers that be, to say if you continue to fund it by next year at this time, Russia's not even going to be a nation, right? That's the elevator pitch. This is what they're trying to sell. Am I incorrect there, Ben? This is the pitch. It means Uber. This is how the guy starts talking about F-35s.
Well, it certainly is an elevator pitch, but I'm curious to know who it is aimed at, because the primary audience, I would think, for a statement like that is the audience that are going to be most directly impacted by this new reality that Ukraine is agitating to bring about, which is effectively the end of Russia as a country and as a country with military capability. This will, wherever you come from on the spectrum with regards to the supposed Saturday coup of June the 24th, wherever you are, whatever you think that was all about, the idea that Ukraine is saying on the day that NATO has said that it will create a fast track entry for eventually for Ukrainian membership, that this statement from the advisor to Zelensky is going to unite Russia. As I say, wherever you are, wherever you think there's a civil war, if you think it's warlord factions, whatever you think the current state of Russia is after 18 months, 16 months of this war, a statement like that is going to unite the country behind the war effort in exactly the same way, Steve. It's exactly the same how in the Republican Party the extrajudicial attacks on Donald Trump have done nothing but solidify the party around him. It's going to be the same dynamic. So this is not something that is going to bring about a quick end through this war, which is obviously where NATO should be right now. I just want to say,
Ben,
Yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go on, please. Go ahead. I was going to say, having just mentioned this, what the actual development is, because this has really come out since we've been on air. The agreement is that NATO members. Now, the wording here, and I'll go into this on analysis. It actually sounds more dramatic than it actually is.
We just had Ben freeze. I think Brent froze, so let's reboot Ben. But hang on, I want to bring in Michael Yan while we get Ben rebooted. Yan, you're in Armenia and you're heading to the nation of Georgia. Give us your perspective. You've been in combat zones for, I don't know, the last 20, 25 years. Give us your perspective of what's happening over in that part of Eurasia, driven by this Ukraine situation.
Hey, Steve. I'm in Yerevan, Armenia, which is the capital of Armenia, Yerevan. And I'm about 30 miles away from the mountains of Ararat, actually, which is where Noah's Ark is said to be. The remnants are still there, they say. And so what has happened here since the Ukraine war, whatever war you want to call this thing, there's a lot of Ukrainians here. I see them constantly every day, Russians as well. So a lot of Russians have flooded in here since the war to avoid the draft, often they will say, or just to do business, and Ukrainians. So they're driving up prices quite a lot. Actually, some Africans are starting to come in. Iranians, a lot of it. Well, this is on the border of Iran. Actually, Armenia borders Iran, but also Egyptians, Syrians, Iraqis. I mean, I'm meeting these people actually. One Egyptian, I think I mentioned it to you before, about a week or so ago. We were talking, and he was angry that he couldn't get a free home here in Armenia. He was angry that the Armenians wouldn't provide him a home after he just escaped from Egypt. Why did he escape from Egypt? I mean, there's no war going on over there. I mean, obviously it's not necessarily a nice place to be for everybody, but no place is. Bottom line is this country, Armenia, is a wonderful country, wonderful people. It's a Christian country, and it's also under attack. And it seems to be under attack in the same spell that many of the other Christian countries are under attack. For instance, flying the rainbow flag. Our ambassador here is starting to push that rainbow issue, which is a very big deal here. Remember, as I mentioned before, the mountains of Ararat are only about 30 miles from where I'm sitting right now, which is where Noah's Ark is said to be. And, there's rainbows all over the place around here. And those are the original meaning of rainbow. And so this country, Armenia, is being flooded in with migrants, is diluting the population. And, of course, the borders are being scrunched down. And of course you got Hungary.
Hang on, I'm gonna get to all because the tie together Todd Bensman and what we've been covering down at Eagle Pass, which you've been the first to talk about the osmotic pressure coming from the world drawn into the United States by the open border mentality of the Biden regime. But I also want to know one of the things that starts it. You're about to go to the country of Georgia, which also has this issue. Tell the American people, tell MAGA right now, the American embassy and the American foreign policy as representing them. When you say that the pride flag and the rainbow flag, what are they trying to push on these quite devout Christian nations like Georgia and like Armenia?
Oh, the LGBTQ crap. And likewise, they're doing the same in Japan, hardcore. As you know, I was just over in Japan again, and I pay very close attention to Japan. They're doing the same here in Armenia, trying to, it's very light at first, because this is a culture that'll stand up more. We've seen what the Armenians have done in Glendale. I was just over in Glendale recently. We saw what happened when they started pushing this on their children in Glendale. The Armenians still have some testosterone. They stood up to it, right? And so actually, the Armenians are quite peaceful people if given the chance, and very civilized. This is a very nice country. I'm out here walking around at midnight and 2 a.m, and I feel quite safe. And so, but they're pushing this here, trying to undermine and erode the culture of Armenia, which is happening demographically just due to the human osmotic pressure of the war. And by the way, you mentioned Georgia, where I'm going to tomorrow. I see Georgians, and Todd's down, my good friend Todd Bensman's down there at Eagle Pass now. I see Georgians coming in through Eagle Pass when I'm there, or in El Paso, and especially over at Yuma. I was seeing Georgians come in every night at Yuma. And of course, Georgians are very pro-American, by the way. And so are Armenians, where I'm at now. They're very pro-American. I feel extremely welcome here. And the Georgians that I meet coming across the border, I don't feel threatened by them actually at all. There's some others that can feel quite threatening, but not the Georgians.
But Michael, why would Georgians? Why would people like Armenia? Why would people, particularly in Georgia, the country of Georgia, which love their country, why are they taking this incredibly dangerous path? Why are you seeing them in Yuma? Why are you seeing them in the Eagle Pass? Why are you seeing them on these border towns? Why are they coming to the United States? What's happening in that region of the country that's forcing these people to leave?
I think a lot of them are being, when I get there and when I get back to places like Yuma, I'm going to be asking more pointed questions to the Georgians. When I say pointed, I like the Georgians. I get along with them well. I don't mean putting them on the spot, but I'm going to ask them specifically, why are you going to the United States when Georgia is such a nice country and Armenia is such a nice country, right? Well, some definitely go due to the wars. There's no question about it. When you talk with Armenians, I mean, you got to see a lot of the Armenian territory has already been taken by Azerbaijan. Of course, Turkey is a hungry wolf right there on the border. Turkey, the mountains of Ararat are actually in Turkey, which is, the border's not far from me now, Turkish border. And so actually one town that I was in about 10 days ago or so, there was actually fighting the day before, and that was inside of Armenia. Right. So there is fighting here, and there's a great deal of threat here from both the Azerbaijanis and from the Turkish. I do see a lot of Armenians are putting a lot of faith in the United States, just like the Hong Kongers did. And Steve, I know you spent a lot of time in Hong Kong, and you're very cognizant of what happened in Hong Kong. The Hong Kongers put huge faith in the United States. Actually, Trump did stand up for them. I saw more American flags in the Hong Kong streets than I actually see in Texas. I mean, they were very pro-American there as well. But the Armenians, I think that they're in for a surprise. I don't believe the United States will be there for them. We have our own embassy starting to push the woke agenda. I mean, this is a very serious thing. That's indicative of what they're planning to do. But we can see, as we've talked about many times, Steve, and as you talk about on your show often, this is a global fight. It's not a fight just in Texas or Arizona or any of those places. It's quite global. Netherlands, of course, is under the gun, and that government just fell, but there's more to that than meets the eye as well. Anyway, Steve, I'll go on for days about this. I'm going to be on the Texas border. I'm going to be across the entire southern border soon, covering it from Boca Chica, where SpaceX is at, all the way to San Diego, going across with some massive gear, incredible gear, and I hope to take one of your teammates, and I want to show you exactly what it's like. We need to show everybody on War Room what it's really like on the Mexican side, where I also spend a lot of time. It's just increasing. The violence is increasing down there. Todd Bensman and I actually were down in the colonia. A colonia, by the way, is the Spanish term for colony. There's a lot of towns for instance, in Texas, they're called colonias. One north of Houston in Liberty County. Todd Bensman and I were there recently, maybe a month and a half ago. And there had just been a shooting before we got there, about 10 days or so before we got there, or a couple of weeks maybe. And we went to the home, and there was bullet holes in the front door. An illegal alien from Mexico had been firing his rifle at night. He had already been deported multiple times. The neighbors complained, and he came and killed the neighbors. I think it was 4 or 5, including a baby. The neighbor said the baby was crying. Please, stop shooting your rifle, or whatever they said. And he came over and he shot the baby. So when Todd and I, and the mother, and the others in the home. So when Todd and I went there, there's bullet holes in the front door right now. The home's there, and it's for rent, actually. So I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're bringing in, sir.
Michael, yeah, we're gonna follow you closely on that trip, because you've gone all over the world now. Before I go back to Harnwell, I just got to ask you on this global fight, the Dutch farmers. Is your analysis correct? This is a push by the World Economic Forum, the globalists that run the Netherlands, Brussels, to basically get rid of the Dutch farmers and take that land back?
Oh, clearly. Dutch farmers own arguably about 62% of the land. That they need to get. The World Economic Forum and CCP is working hard to get those farmers off that land so they can build Tri-State City. And Tri-State City they want that to hold 30 million people. It's being flooded with people from Africa and Asia and Middle East, and to replace the Dutch. And then it goes the same with the fishermen, actually. They're replacing the fishermen. I've spent a good amount of time with the fishermen. I don't actually talk about it as much, but they're also being knocked out. And that's the Dutch fishermen, right? And so at the end of the day, Groningen gas field, what I talked about with you, Steve, several times. I was up in Groningen in March. Groningen is a vital gas field in Netherlands. They just announced that they're going to shut it down. That's why I was there in March. That's a big deal. That's the gas that they make nitrogenous fertilizers with, and a lot of other things, energy to heat their homes, and they're shutting that down. And that's all a result of information war. The Dutch farmers, when Mark Rutte's government just fell, the Prime Minister Mark Rutte, now he's like the Trudeau of Netherlands, and Klaus Schwab has been seen on video saying, where do you find such a prime minister as Mark Rutte, right? He's effusively complimenting Mark Rutte. Klaus Schwab is complimenting Mark Rutte. And now Mark Rutte's party has fallen, but the party that is set to possibly replace him, the BBB party, the Bodenburger Beweging, which in Dutch means Farmer Citizens Movement, is their campaign signs were BB better. In March, they were all over Netherlands. BB better, build back better. I mean, that's a wolf telling you it is a wolf. The BBB party is a World Economic Forum, or as the Dutch call it, a WEF. It's a WEF. It's an arm of the WEF, just like Mark Rutte is. And more of the farmers are seeing this, but they didn't see it in March when they voted them in. Now, I was on your show and on with Jordan Peterson and others warning BBB party is clear, and Ava Vlardingenbroek did the same. She was warning, I was warning together when we were on a show together, that the BBB party is in fact an arm of the WEF. It's right in the open. They don't even hide it. And so what's going to happen if Mark Rutte is gone and his party's gone? Probably be replaced by the BBB party. I think a person that you might want to speak with, I think you've had him on the show before, is Terry Baudet. Terry Baudet is the member of parliament. He's in the FVD party, the Forum for Democracy. I was with the FVD party in March, on March 15th, when the votes were counted, and they lost a huge amount. FVD party would sort of be like, you might arguably call it MAGA of Netherlands. I mean, they are standing up for Netherlands. I wouldn't doubt it if FVD party ends up being, sidelined and made illegal. I told Terry the other day, I wouldn't doubt it that if he was put in jail, actually. And so, I mean, of course, he responded, I hope not. But Terry Baudet has been standing up. FVD party has been standing up. So they are targeted as hard as you are, Steve. It's actually not as hard as you're targeted, but it's a sort of baby brother as hard. It's getting there, Dutch style. And so that's what's happening. The two parties that are in most question here are the BBB party, which is a clear left glove, and Mark Rutte's party, which is probably outgoing. Of course, the government has fallen, but let's see what actually happens. And that's what's happening, Steve. They're working to take the World Economic Forum and CCP need that farmland from the Dutch farmers to build Tri-State City, the railway that goes all the way from Shanghai. I've been on that end of the railroad in Shanghai, all the way to Rotterdam, and I've been on that end, is the rail that China has built. And so they need Rotterdam, which is in Tri-State City.
One of the great ports in the world. Michael Jan, you've been going throughout the world. People want to follow you closely on Armenia as you head to the country of Georgia. Where do people go? How do people follow you?
I'm on Truth Social, and of course, and I'm on a Getter at Michael Jan 1776, and Michael Jan 1776, or Michael Jan 1776. I'm on Twitter and Michael_Jan, and I'm on Locals and locals.com. And of course, we're going to be going across that border next month in just a couple of weeks, and this is going to be epic. I can't wait to get your team out there, Steve.
Yeah. No, we're going to be excited. Michael Jan, thank you very much. Honored to have you on here. Stay safe, brother. Michael always goes to the most dangerous assignments in the world. We had technical problem with Ben. We will get Ben Harnwell back up tomorrow. We got more time. Ben is all over this situation, the NATO meeting, and the situation with Zelensky and the entire pack of wolves. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. when we will be in the war room. We'll see you then.